Rare items are part of most online games, bringing the player either recognition, fortune, or an advantage over other players who may not have been so lucky as to obtain one. This video covers what makes the rare items in RuneScape so sought after, and whether it's possible to predict future rare items and their prices in game, or have all the opportunities disappeared. Firstly, let's take it all the way back to the beginning. Contrary to popular belief, the first ever discontinued rare item was in fact the pumpkin, released in October 2001, not the party hats, which were released later that year in December 2001. The price of such an item now 20 years later is extortionately high comparatively to the bonuses or the actual item itself and the value of what it would be worth if it was just a new item within the game. Since the item was only ever available at one point, especially since it was at the inception of the game, the item has become one of the rarest in game. It is this exclusivity that makes the item valuable within RuneScape, and it's the reason we have party hats in game now that are worth 15 times the max cash stack of the in-game currency GP. This is not because the items have an innate overpowered ability or bonus that they can provide you or your account's activities. It's simply that you can partake in an exclusive community of people who manage to acquire an item or items that only a set number of players can ever own within the game, because there are no more items that can ever come back into the game. This stigma behind being part of the elite few who have either accumulated enough GP from your dedication to the game, or because you got lucky enough to own these items since their release. Whatever the case may be, this is definitely an aspect of the game that has driven and continues to drive players to keep grinding and playing the game religiously at the chance of being able to get your hands on some of these items. In order to establish the reasoning behind the desire for these rare items, we must also look at the prices of each item depending on the type of item it is. Simply having a super rare drop rate is often not enough to maintain the rarity of an item in RuneScape over time, and it is this discontinuation process that solidifies the item as a long-term rare. This does not mean that every discontinued item in the game, however, will become a super rare item, and in fact there are a number of parameters that need to be fulfilled to acquire such a status. First off, the item must be, in some regard, rare before its discontinuation, or, by very least, be old enough that many of the items through the flow of time have a significantly reduced supply due to players quitting, players disregarding the item at the inception point when, it's not actually worth anything, or it's not actually thought to be anything other than what it is at the time, and no one really thinks about the long-term impacts of an item at its release, that maybe they won't even know if it gets discontinued, because maybe they'll leave the game before that even happens. Now, not only does the item have to be somewhat rare, it also typically needs to be an attractive item or have some form of charm to it. For example, Christmas related items like the black and red Santa hats, Christmas scythe and holly wreath have all been regarded as some of the most iconic rare items in RuneScape, and as such the demand for these items is massive, and this has led to the staggering prices of these items costing multiple cash stacks to acquire one. And obviously if you think about the age of the party hats coming into the game as opposed to some of the more recent rares being the black Santa hat, you can see just how expensive they can go with enough time and enough demand. It should be noted that although an item can be super rare, it can have all of the things that we've talked about so far, to enable it to have some sort of value, if you can't actually show it off to anyone, you aren't going to be able to get this pinnacle of the price point. And so being a wearable item that can be shown off easily to other players to go, hey look, I am part of the elite community that managed to pick up one of these, that's really what drives the prices of some of them. And you'll notice that the most expensive rare items are typically wearable ones, and you won't be seeing things like the pumpkin ever reach the same price as something like a party hat. Given that we know what has historically made rare items super iconic and valuable, does this mean we can predict future items and make a fortune passively? The answer to this is, well, sort of. It will come as no shock to players that the newly released limited time tradable rare golden party hat will likely be a staple of the rare item market in 5 years time, maybe even in just as little as 3 years time. You can see with the black Santa hat coming into the game in 2014, I believe, that actually has risen in a ridiculous amount within the last couple of years. And so, yeah, you can definitely see price rises very, very quickly after it becomes discontinued. And so getting your hands on one of these is definitely something I would recommend, not only for the fact that it currently costs 400 million as the recording of this video to actually purchase one straight out, and it's fairly easy to actually get your hands on one, then yeah, I think it is definitely an investment that could be potentially worth it in the years to come. It must be said that although this item will inevitably rise in price after it no longer has the possibility of becoming obtainable when the event ends, the demand of the item is subject to player opinion and desire. If the item itself does not actually look good, or it isn't actually well received by the community, then, you know, the price of it is going to be impacted by that. So just because an item has all of the tick boxes, if people don't like it in the first place, it really doesn't mean that it's going to be worth anywhere near as much as some of the initial items that came into RuneScape, and you'll probably never see the golden party hat reach the highest peak of the prices in the game. In a similar manner, the release of the tradable green Santa hat that's come out, the gift wrap scythe and frosted wreath, may or may not be repeatable items that arrive every year, and these are items that could be potentially very risky for you to actually purchase thinking that they're going to become these rare items. Now, yes, initially, they are very rare to be able to get your hands on because of the drop rate of these things through Treasure Hunter and stuff like that. However, when it comes to long-term rare items, they have to become discontinued if you really want them to boom in price and become these items that go from being 300 million to 3 billion, 30 billion, you know, all of these sort of crazy prices that we can see with the current discontinued rare item market. When thinking about actually purchasing these kind of items, you have to err on the side of caution. These items are not guaranteed to be discontinued like the rare golden party hat will be, and so it becomes a bit of a risk that it may never reach the pinnacle of the rare item market, and actually if it ever gets released again, these items will significantly reduce in cost, and over numerous years of continuously being supplied, the supply becomes more than the demand, and then therefore you lead to a decrease in the price of these items. So keep that in the back of your mind and accept the risk if you do decide to go with these items as an investment. Hopefully this has given you an inclination as to the rare item market on RuneScape, and I wanted to therefore end this video with a question to you. What makes you want an item so desperately that you will spend your in-game savings, real-life time and potentially spending real-life money on bonds and memberships so that you can obtain one within the game? Let me know in the comment section down below, and don't forget to subscribe for more content coming soon, and check out some of the other videos on the channel, including RuneScape guides and gameplay and all of the sort. I hope to see you soon. Goodbye.